Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you, and this time I'm doing a review of the series Lillyhammer. Now, those of you who are regulars to my channel might remember that a few weeks back I did a review of the show's first episode, which I really did enjoy. I've since sat down, watched all 3 seasons of the show, and just had a tremendous time. Lillyhammer is a lot of fun. So now I kind of want to go and just sort of talk a little bit about my feelings having watched all 3 seasons, sort of a series review, if you would. I'm going to keep things pretty spoiler free here, so if you're not familiar with it, you don't really have too much to worry about. The basic premise of Lillyhammer is a mobster in New York nicknamed Frankie the Fixer, played by Stephen Van Sant. Uh, longtime collaborator with Bruce Springsteen, of course, and also a veteran of The Sopranos. Frankie basically gets backstabbed by one of his mob associates, testifies to the FBI, and because of his fascination with Norway from having watched the 1994 Winter Olympics, he asks to be relocated in the Witness Protection Program to the town of Lillehammer, Norway, which is, of course, is where the series gets its name. And the idea behind the show is brilliant. It is simplicity is what happens if you take a dyed-in-the-wool American mobster and turn him loose on a small Norwegian town that he immediately starts to sort of bend to his will. And he drops the name of Frankie the Fixer. Frankie, I can't even remember what his proper Italian name was. But when he gets in Lillyhammer, he takes up the name of Johnny Hendrickson, pretending to be an American of Italian and Norwegian heritage. And he quickly assembles a crew of some of the local Norwegian miscreants, and also just some guys who are just sort of regular schmucks, to sort of be his gang. And a lot of it is just sort of 2 aspects. One is just sort of Johnny having to deal with other people who are up to no good, who happen to be running around the Lillyhammer area. And also, and this is really the heart of the series comedy, is his rather blunt methods of dealing with the particulars of Norwegian society. Johnny is very much I guess, the sort of guy who sort of understands the difference between sometimes you want to use the hammer and sometimes you want to use the scalpel. You could to deal with these sort of situations, particularly when he's dealing with the bureaucracy of the Norwegian government. Well, sometimes he'll go in there and just sort of offer a bribe or something like that. And other times, usually the more fun ones, he just goes in there and resorts to some good old-fashioned intimidation and violence. Johnny's very much an anti-hero, but the genuine villains of the show are people who are usually, well, perhaps not worse than him, but certainly bastards who deserve a little bit of unpleasantness to happen to them. And other times they're just sort of not necessarily evil, but bothersome, obstructive people who gotta get a kick in the butt that is well deserved. It might be interesting. The most interesting person that Johnny kind of draws into his orbit around him is this sort of schlubby, loserish Norwegian guy by the name of Torgeir. And Torgeir is basically kind of one of the great sources of comedy on Lillyhammer. Again, he does sort of have this sort of loser cloud hanging over him. But over the course of the show, I mean, Torgeir really grows a lot as a character. I mean, he still sort of has that sort of schlubby, schmuckish sort of thing to him. But his friendship with Johnny and, basically, for all intents and purposes, becoming a member of the Norwegian branch of the American Mafia, it also does a real number on Torgeir's confidence. He becomes a much more confident person. He becomes a person who believes in himself a lot more. And, despite the fact that just by being around Johnny, he does have to do and take part in some pretty terrible things, at his heart, Torgir remains a good person. His brother Roar, who also kind of gets drawn into Johnny's circle of things, he's a little bit more of a complex case. I mean, at his heart, Roar is not a bad guy, but he's also kind of dumb and selfish and gets himself into a lot of really bad situations because of him making foolish choices. But, that dynamic of somebody like that who doesn't really seem to learn from their mistakes, it still makes for an interesting and compelling character. I think we all have someone in our family like Roar. You care about them, you love them, but they're just like, how in the world stupid could you possibly be? Interestingly, like one of the more, what I think is perhaps one of the more rich, can't talk. One of the richer characters is also a fellow by the name of Jan, who sort of starts out as a local bureaucrat who's a bit of a problem, but over the time sort of more or less kind of becomes a bit of an ally to Johnny. And Jan is another guy who is simultaneously a source of tremendous comedy and tremendous drama. I mean, he's another one of those guys. It's like, man, Jan, what is wrong with you? Why do you always do the wrong thing? Even when you do the right thing, it never lasts. Jan is interesting because he's a guy who's just a slave to the more self-serving side of his nature. He just can't help. He can't help it if there's something in it for him. He just can never say no for long. And that really is what drives a lot of what happens with his character. And it leads to some extremely interesting stuff for him as a character in Season 3. And then there are sort of more minor characters like Dag and Roy, who are also kind of associates of Johnny. Roy more than Dag. We have Sigrid, who's a Norwegian lady. I'm pretty sure I'm saying her name right. That Johnny takes an interest in very early on, and there are a lot more characters than that. But at the end of the day, Lillyhammer is really just a fun show that really has. I guess you could really say that it is a show that really has culture clash at the heart of it. But it's culture clash, that is simultaneously both hilarious comedy and high drama. Johnny, it might not be the nicest guy in the world, but in its own strange way, Lillyhammer is lucky to have him there. He even says, I think in Season 3, that Norway is a great country. It's just that the people there don't know how to have fun. Well, I don't think I've ever really talked for an extended period of time with anyone from Norway. I think like a conversation in a bar with some Norwegian engineer is basically the extent of my cultural contact with Norwegian people. So I don't really feel I'm qualified to judge, though judging by the amount of alcohol he and the other Norwegians at the bar were slamming back, I rather imagine Norwegians are not unfamiliar with the concept of fun. But what Lillyhammer is just sort of a chance to really just sort of take the veneer of polite society off and just sort of really run with it. And it doesn't matter what culture you're from, that's always fun. And of course, Lillyhammer is well acted. It's well written. Stephen Van Sant has an extensive musical background, and is part of the writing and music, and I believe the producer on the show. So he has an enormous influence. So the show has absolutely fantastic music. I've found several songs that I really enjoy from listening to Lillyhammer. So yeah, guys, at the end of the day, Lillyhammer is a great show. It is well worth your time. You can check it out on Netflix. It comes with a most hearty recommendation. So with that said, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.